takes a really special person, I think, to choose to be an educator. And that's what makes it so rewarding and so gratifying when you're in that role. Yes, there are going to be challenges, but there are also such incredible things that you can focus on within your career, within your connection with your students that make it so worthwhile.
Now that you talk about the narrative, I was having a conversation with one of our colleagues and they're currently studying teaching, and they said that for their family it's either you do something you're good at or you do teaching.
My favourite thing about being a teacher for me is the aha moments. Putting everything in place that nurture young people to have those aha moments where they just get it. They get the equation, or they, write something they're really proud of, or they have the moment, or they achieve the thing, whatever that is for them.
Podclass acknowledges the true and traditional custodians of the land we meet on here today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present and are grateful to be on this country.
So no one told you teaching was gonna be this way. Your lesson plans are jokes, your patience broke, you're feeling in disarray. It's like you're always stuck in report writing, when it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your school year. But I'll be here for you
When the students start to riot,
I'll be here for you.
even if your coffee has gone cold,
I'll be here for you, 'cause you're there for them too.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to Podclass, the podcast for teachers and educators. And as always, you are joined by your hosts. Let's first of all say hi to Will Masara.
Hi, Will Masara.
bonjour. The accents are
Back again.
Oh, bonjour.
Hola.
Will is the founder and CEO of Youth Leadership Academy Australia.
Si, amigo.
Can you tell you spent time in
Oh
Mexico?
my gosh, so funny.
I actually went back to school. Time for another story. Another episode. We'll come back.
Okay, we'll come back to your schooling.
Solid start, team.
Learning Spanish. And Will is joined by us, me. I'm Amanda, and this is Skye.
Hello.
And we are the co-founders of Youth Engagement Project. And we are very excited today to share with you the one about the best job in the world.
What is it?
And one of the most important jobs in the world. And one of the most life-changing jobs in the world, and one of the jobs that we need to help shift the trajectory of the world.
Yeah. And I guess this was sparked because we put out a post asking for what do people think about teaching currently? How are you feeling about the current landscape of teaching? We got quite a few DMs that had the same kind of flavour. And there was one DM in particular that really stood out, and we would love to read it. And this is with permission.
On Instagram, by the way, Podclass.
On Instagram.
Shameless.
A little plug.
Will, to answer your question, spoiler, the job is
Teaching.
teaching.
Yeah, it was like Game
Teaching.
of Guess Who.
Yeah.
When I was in school, I literally thought there were two options for jobs, and that was like
this is
marine
so
biologist or
funny.
like dolphin trainer.
Also, context, Skye grew up in Hervey Bay in Queensland by the ocean.
I did.
I was like, I had two very different job options in my head, although being a dolphin trainer would be epic.
Yeah, I don't know.
So tell us this message, Skye.
So yeah, let's back on track. So we received this message. The message says, "Hey team, I've been following along with Podclass, and I really wanted to ask some tips for some new educators. From what I've noticed online, there seems to be a lot of negativity around teaching, burnout, etc. And there's not a lot of gratification or satisfaction and reward for being a teacher. So how are new educators supposed to be excited for their new career when so many in it already hate it? Personally, this doesn't affect me because my team and leadership at my school, but I've had a lot of other new educators from other schools say this to me. The other thing is the feeling of being overwhelmed as a new educator. As much as I might ask my team, exec, and other school leaders for help, I still feel like I'm over my head sometimes. I'm in over my head sometimes. With all the admin and data we have to do, I sometimes feel like a fake, if you will, because I have no idea why we do some of the things we do." And big message, but I also think just has really hit the nail on the head from the general consensus that we've been reading about, have experienced ourselves in that space of being around, I guess, the negativity and the stories that come along with being a teacher. And there's just so much to unpack there. So we thought that that's what we would do today.
I'm going to take a wild guess and say she's not alone.
Wild, so wild.
Let me cut. Sorry.
Yeah.
Let me redo that. And I'm going to take a wild guess and assume that they're not alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So wild.
100%. Crazy talk. Not really.
Definitely
and
not
it's really
alone.
interesting because we were looking at some statistics about teaching, and every single year in Australia, 16,000 teachers graduate from university.
Sounds like plenty.
16.
It sounds like plenty,
it's
right?
not even enough.
But it's not. We're still around 4,000 teachers short
For our
every
demand.
year for what we need.
But like,
Yeah.
if we, we have 16,000 people entering this space every single year. We know it's wonderful. We know it's incredible. We know it changes lives. And so, it hit me so much in the feels, this message, because I was reflecting on, it's so true. Like for those 16,000 people entering their career, what is the current, it is a really negative landscape.
Yeah.
And like, actually, now that you talk about the narrative, we were having a conversation recently with one of our colleagues, and they're currently studying teaching, and they said that for their family, it's either you do something you're good at or you do teaching.
Wow.
It's like if you're not good at anything, you go down the teaching pathway.
That
and
old
that's the
saying.
It's that stigma, right?
What's that saying? If you
But that those that can't do, teach.
Yep.
which is just wild,
Wild.
right? And if we keep telling this story, that's why we have 4,000 less, and then the 16,000 who are entering don't feel supported, don't feel engaged, and are really struggling.
Yeah. And you are. It's such an exciting time of your career and such an exciting time of your life. And yet, there are these narratives floating around, and there are these challenges, exactly like this beautiful person shared in this DM. And so, let's dive in, let's unpack it, because we're both educators, and this is the one about the best job in the world. And we believe, maybe besides parenthood, and besides a few other key, like one of the most important jobs in the world.
Yeah.
And even though it is the best job in the world, we don't want to take away from saying there's not really hard times where you feel like giving up as well.
Exactly. So prefacing this isn't about like toxic positivity and throwing labels at teaching about, it's the best job in the world and everyone should be a teacher. Not at all. It takes a really special person, I think, to choose to be an educator. And that's what makes it so rewarding and so gratifying when you're in that role. Yes, there are going to be challenges, but there are also such incredible things that you can focus on within your career, within your connection with your students that make it so, so worthwhile. I was literally saying, because having stepped out of teaching full time and working more in the teacher PD space now and in more of a consulting kind of role, I literally miss teaching like every single day. And
Can we just unpack that for 1 second? What do you most miss about it? Because we know, like, the amount of phone calls we've had, like, you felt the challenges, you saw it all, and yet you miss it every single day.
Yeah.
So what are you missing?
I miss
What is it for
the
you?
collective community of people that really get it. Like teachers, there's something about, it's like in any profession, right? But when you're there for the same reason and the same cause, there's something really unifying in that. Yeah. And I miss that sense of really being unified in that environment. But even more than that, I miss my students, and I miss having that connection and that relationship, and seeing students that maybe enter in, year 7, and they're a little bit dorky and they're a little bit, their backpacks, they look like little Ninja Turtles, like, whatever.
That's good.
Coming in, and watching them grow and seeing them flourish and really step into and own who they are as their journey throughout school progresses. Like, there's nothing else in the world like that, probably, except for parenthood, seeing it, getting to see young people grow. And like we've said before, often teachers are spending more time with a particular young person than sometimes even their parents are. So we can't underestimate the importance of that role and what an influence and positive influence you can be. And I think I just really, I really miss that part of it.
And what about you? Do you miss it?
Yeah.
Amanda's like, nah.
I do. And for me, what I miss most is definitely the relationship piece, that ongoing, consistent building of relationship and really getting to know young people and guide young people and lead young people to learn more about who they are. And I also think my favourite thing about being a teacher for me is the aha moments. Witnessing, putting everything in place that nurture young people to have those aha moments where they just get it. They get the equation, or they, write something they're really proud of, or they have the moment, or they achieve the thing, whatever that is for them. Those aha moments are, for me, everyone is a gift, like an absolute gift, and I just love it. And, so as you said, Skye, like we're not here to talk, this is not about this, we're not being toxically positive about education. We know there's a lot of challenges, and in fact, our intention is to address and support with a lot of those through this podcast. But I think, going back to that DM, there's some things that we can really unpack there around what it's like to be a new educator entering the education system. And I think, especially like it really hit me as well, the feeling of feeling a bit fake. Like we've done 4 years of uni, we come out and we're meant to hit the ground running. And then it's like, oh my gosh, sometimes it just feels like you're treading water in so many places. And how do we approach that? How do we support ourselves through that?
And I think that sense of overwhelm can really come alongside that when we feel as though there's so much going on and there's data that we've got to report on and there's marking to do and there's all of these kind of things. And how do we manage that overwhelm and stay really grounded and focused on what it is we're there to do? And sometimes it feels like you're so far away in teaching from actual teaching because of all the other stuff. And so I think a couple of things that really stood out for me as fantastic advice in my early career that kind of has carried through with me in teaching is done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
Love.
Every time.
Like,
no matter in what you do, I think.
Anything. But I think it's hard, right? Because as humans and teachers, like often there is that sense of perfectionism or wanting to get it perfect because it's for young people and we want to make sure it's like just right or whatever it might be. And like they don't know any different.
Mess it up,
They don't know any different though.
Yeah.
And getting it done and just being able to tick something off your to-do list, like who cares? If you're in teaching for the long haul, having an attitude of getting it perfect and that needing to be the result that you get, it's not sustainable.
We look at like businesses who want to start, they want everything to be perfect before they start. The reality is they never start.
Correct.
I love the quote, ready is not a feeling, ready is our decision.
Yeah, I love that.
Because if we wait to feel ready, it's just not going to come.
And also too, we're looking at, like you were saying, Wilson, the sustainability of education, which we know there's a teacher shortage. So we have to find a way to make this profession more sustainable and focus on those positive parts of teaching. And the done is better than perfect piece is it might just be done this year, but if you're going to be in teaching for the next 10, 20, 30 years, great, then you do 1% the next year and then you add 1% the next year. And that's how we grow instead of having to have it all done right now perfectly because we know that's not a reality.
And I think we can get really distracted by the small tasks, and regardless of what job we're in, I'm speaking from my experience, it's like them small admin tasks that you have to do that distract you. And what I found works
like
really, really well.
And
for me it's accounting. But yes, reporting.
The teachers
it's like,
reporting.
Can we set aside allocated time each week where that is the time that we focus on it, and we switch in then?
Yeah.
And don't try not to think about it in their moments, because at any other time it's just more distractions.
And going back to this kind of phrase of feeling like a fake, I so understand that feeling of, I feel like I built up all this knowledge and I've spent all this time and I've done all this learning and I get here and it's not enough, and I'm still having to grow and I'm still having to reach. And I think the best thing we can do for ourselves is to reframe that and to acknowledge that it is a growth journey, and there is support available for a reason, and who can we go to? And someone once said to me, a mentor, I have faced our little friend imposter syndrome a lot throughout my career.
Besties.
And you know what? Still do, absolutely. Who am I to be sitting in this podcast studio? No, not really. But
I was like, oh no, intervention time.
But
we've got the couches already.
Someone said to me, if you're feeling imposter syndrome, just don't be an imposter. And so just don't act on something that you know, if you need help, ask for help. Like, we don't have to fake it. You know, we can be real. Like, we don't have to go forth and, you know, do things where we feel like we don't actually have all the knowledge, and yet we're just going to dive in and give it a go because we don't want to ask for help and we don't want to seem like we're needy and whatever it is. And that fuels imposter syndrome because we're feeling like we're being an imposter into that situation.
Totally.
So we can, like, asking for help is so okay.
And I really would love to share, I've been in a leadership role in school for the past few years before stepping out and doing what we do now. And I have never once thought less of any single staff member or colleague or whoever it is that I work with, student, doesn't matter. I've never thought less of anyone who's come and has asked for help. Like, someone comes and asks me for help, I'm not like, gee whiz, you're bloody incompetent, aren't you? Or you don't know how to do your job or whatever it might. Never have I thought that. I've always admired, respected, taken the time to check in. And we, I think as humans, we want to know why. Like, why is this important? Why is this data being used? How is it going to be used? Like, and we're human beings, not human doings. So we want to be able to be through all of that as well.
I'm curious, Skye, you say that you in your leadership position, you've never looked at anyone and been like, what are you doing? Why are you asking for help? Have you ever felt like that, being on the receiving end of it?
Like, so much so. Like, when I've had to ask for help, like, I've felt, is that what you mean?
Yeah, and what made you feel like that?
I think it's that sometimes it's often I'm maybe talking to an educator who has more experience than I do, or they've maybe been teaching for 10, 15, 20 years more than I have. And there's a feeling of, well, like, they know so much and I do feel incompetent in my experience in comparison. But I have never had an experience either of actually asking for help and then feeling like that after the conversation. It's only ever the feeling that exists before the conversation. And we talk a lot about there's a big difference between our perception and our reality.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just an important reframe to kind of zoom out and say to ourselves, well, hang on a minute, this is just my perception. What's the reality of the situation? Well, the reality of the situation is that this person is a colleague. We're all here for the same reason, to serve the same kids in this school. So I can ask for help and that's okay. And the reality is that that person is going to want to support me because we're on the same team.
Yeah.
I was having a really challenging time with teaching a few years ago, and I think just a bit overwhelmed and processing everything and, you know, facing different challenges in the community and whatever it was. And a colleague said something to me that was really beautiful, and she shared with me her mindset. And she said, if you are making a difference for one student, you are changing the world. Like, you are changing a life. And sometimes it's hard because our to-do list is never done. We're never going to know every piece of curriculum, and we're never going to be across everything. And we have to normalize that. But if we can reframe and, those moments, like if we're making those differences to one student, that's what it's about. And that's why we're calling this, that's why we feel like this is the best job in the world, because that difference, I mean, if we weren't making it, it might not be being made.
Exactly. 100%.
And you also just have no idea who's sitting in your class and who's in your influence and what that person is going to go on to do and achieve and who they're going to be in the world. And what a privilege that we get to do that every day with these young people, and knowing that, and we're big fans of that. It's not about what you say, it's not about what you do, it's how you make them feel, and that's what people will remember. And that's I couldn't tell you a single thing that my teachers said to me in high school, but I certainly know which classrooms I felt the most comfortable in, where I could be vulnerable, where I could take risks, where I felt like I could really be myself. And that's what we get to do every day as educators, going into a class. And that tell me a better job than that. What an amazing thing. And I would love to share, if it's okay with you, just to kind of tie this all together, that we just don't know and understand the influence that we're having, is I received this beautiful message following one of our podcasts earlier.
The DMs are flowing in.
The DMs are flowing. And this actually
DM
came from, and I'm going to give her a shout out to Georgia. She just doesn't know. I'll message her and let her know we're doing this. But I got this message from an ex-student that I taught 5 years ago and is now in their third year of teaching and studying teaching.
Wow.
And I had no idea that even we didn't, because child safety is a real thing. We didn't it's not like they left school and then we were connected on social media or anything. They found me now in their third year of teaching and
so
looked me up.
wild.
So wild. And it's a flashback. I saw the name pop up and I had that moment as teachers do. I was like,
who
where do
are
I
you?
know that name from? Or when you see a student that you've taught 10 years later and they're like working in like a corporate setting and you run into them and you're like, where do I know you from? And it's,
Gosh, that happened to us the other day.
I know, your
So
students.
wild.
But I received this message and it just says, Miss Hughes!
Miss
Lots
Hughes,
of
what is
exclamation
up?
marks.
What is up?
I know. I just wanted to send you this message because I've just listened to one of your newest episodes of the podcast. How cute. I've been following along and so proud of you, Will and Amanda. Gorgeous is that?
Stop.
I thought I'd just let you know that I'm currently in my third year of teaching prac and I'm teaching a lovely group of year 7s, 9s and 10s. And I just wanted to say a big thanks to you. Every time I think about the type of teacher that I want to be, I think back to the way you taught us in school and how much love and light you brought to the classroom. You had a profound influence on me and now on my career. Even now, your podcast is helping me think of new and creative ways to tailor my lessons and bring more fun into the classroom. And the kids are loving it. So thank you.
I would be in your classroom.
How amazing, but the point of that isn't to be like, I'm awesome. Like, that's not. But the point is that
We never
that's
know.
the impact and the influence we
Yes.
can have.
100%.
Like, she might not have chosen teaching because, she had me as a teacher, but the fact that she's chosen to go into a profession of teaching and she's reflecting back on who her teachers were and who her role models were throughout her education experience, like that influence will continue regardless of what career people go into. And we get to be those kind of guiding hands to support them do that.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And so, putting the overwhelm and the challenges aside and, acknowledging for all of our teachers that are in the field that have this real love, this real spark. I have this beautiful, beautiful friend and, they are so passionate about education. They're so passionate about teaching. And, I love asking that question of, if you didn't have to go to work, when you woke up tomorrow, what would you do? And their response every time, I would go to school, I would be with my students.
Oh, how beautiful.
And these are the types of people, and like you may relate to that. For me personally, like it was a little different than that being in the classroom. There were also my own challenges that came with it as well. However, it's like, let's acknowledge wherever we come from and however we relate to it, let's acknowledge the power and the influence of it, and let's acknowledge the privilege of being an educator. And remember, done is better than perfect always.
Reach out for help.
Yes, ask for help. Oh my goodness.
Know
And
your mentors.
No,
No,
your mentors
yes.
are. It's okay to fake it till you make it. We're still faking it, and guess
my
what? We're still
gosh.
making it and doing the
hi,
things
hello,
because we just do.
it's me. We're here faking a no. And yeah, just back yourself.
Back yourself.
Back
because-
yourself
Appreciate
and know that
yourself.
you've chosen to be in your classroom with your students pursuing this career for a reason, and don't lose sight of that in the negativity that can exist around education. Just remind yourself of your why you're here, and the fact that you make a huge difference in the lives of young people.
And
On
thank
behalf
you.
of all the Gen Zs and all the Gen Alphas, we thank you. And we shall see you next week on Podclass.
Thank you for helping us change the world with the best job in the world.
See you then. Bye.
I'll be here for you, 'cause you're there for them too.